Hi, my name is Leighton Garan, and today I will be analyzing Mother Teresa. Now, to start off, when you hear Mother Teresa, what do you think of, right? You probably think of compassion, sacrifice, and selflessness. She's basically regarded as one of the greatest humanitarians in modern history. Off the top of my head, she won the Nobel Peace Prize. She founded Missionaries of Charity and basically spent a good amount of her life serving the poor in India. Because of this, she holds a powerful place in global culture, not basically as a historical figure, but also as a moral symbol. Now, I asked the question, what if that image was incomplete? What if we looked at it through a different lens, specifically through Aaron James's theory? And we might actually find out that she fits the definition of what he considers an asshole. Looking at Aaron James's theory, basically, he says an asshole is someone who feels entitled to special advantages, acts on that entitlement, and is largely immune to the complaints of other people, right? Now, they're not simply rude or unkind. It is about a consistent pattern of behavior where a person places their own perspective or interests above others without being meaningfully affected by criticism, right? Now, does Mother Teresa fit the description? Now, firstly, there is evidence suggesting that she may have had a form of moral entitlement. Mother Teresa openly expressed the belief that suffering had, what's the word, spiritual value. In her own words, suffering could bring people closer to God, something she wrote in her own book. Um, Now, on the surface, this may sound like a deeply religious perspective, right? But when you translate it into practice, there are certain problems with that statement. Um, Several investigations actually into her facilities found that they lacked many basic medical care, including adequate pain management and hygiene. Um, Patients were often not given strong enough painkillers, even when they were available. What does this lead to? This leads to an important ethical issue. If a leader believes suffering is meaningful, and that belief leads to people enduring avoidable pain, that starts to look like entitlement. Not maybe in like a selfish sense, right? But maybe in a moral one. It basically suggests that Mother Teresa's beliefs justified conditions that others were basically forced to endure. Secondly, we see potential disregard for others, which is another key element in James's theory, right? Critics like Christopher Hitchens argued in 1995, I believe, that despite receiving significant donations, right, from people across the world, her organizations did not consistently improve medical conditions in the facilities. Additionally, there is evidence that Mother Teresa herself even said she accepted modern medical treatment when she was ill, while those under her care did not receive the same level of care, of treatment. Now, because of this, there is a contrast, right? On one hand, suffering is framed as spiritually valuable for the poor, while on the other side, that standard does not seem to apply equally to Mother Teresa. This double standard aligns closely with what James describes as entitlement, the belief that normal rules do not apply in the same way to oneself, or in this case, Mother Teresa. Now, third, there is an issue of immunity to criticism, right? Um, there are many decades of criticism from maybe journalists, doctors, and even some scholars. But Mother Teresa's public image remained pretty positive, right? Even before this assignment, I didn't think she could do no wrong. Um, this matters because when looking at James's theory, right, assholes are not just people who act in problematic ways. There are people who are not meaningfully corrected by criticism, right? In this case, her reputation and maybe how people viewed her in a moral sense appear to have basically shielded her from accountability. And however, to make a strong and fair argument, it is important to consider counter arguments, right? Many argue that Mother Teresa's goal was not to provide full medical care, but to offer dignity and compassion to those who were basically abandoned by society, right? Mother Teresa worked in extremely poor conditions, where there were limited resources and suffering was pretty common. It is also undeniable that she did help a lot of people, and who might otherwise have, I don't know, died alone in the streets. Um, Now these points complicate the argument, I'd say. They show that her actions were not really entirely purely harmful, right? And maybe that her actions or her intentions were they may be sincere. So how big of an asshole was she really, right? It is reasonable to say that maybe as a moderate to high level case, not because she was malicious, but because her decisions had large scale consequences. Her influence basically extended over thousands of vulnerable people, and the conditions of care under her leadership had like real effects. In terms of responsibility, I'd say she bears significant, but she isn't really liable. Yes, she was the leader of her organizations. She shaped its philosophical practices, right? But at the same time, systematic factors, like poverty, like limited medical infrastructure and cultural conditions played a role. Therefore, responsibility should be understood as shared, though she remains central to the outcomes. Now, according to James's theory, the answer is not blind admiration or complete rejection. Instead, we should look at Mother Teresa with critical engagement, right? This means questioning even the most respected figures, especially when their actions affect vulnerable populations. It also means reevaluating humanitarian work, right? Based on outcomes, but not just on intentions. Now, I want to conclude by saying Mother Teresa remains a symbol of compassion. That is true. There is a compelling argument that she does fit Aaron James's definition of what an asshole is in different regards. Her parent moral entitlement, the reported disregard of adequate medical care, and her what's it called? Her insulation from criticism all align with key elements of James's framework. At the same time, her case reminds us that moral judgment is rarely simple, right? Even the most admired people deserve careful and critical evaluation. Thank you. Uh, thank you.